India is called diabetes capital of the world. Current research shows more than 100 million people are diabetic. 130 million people are pre-diabetic.
Okay, then this rate has increased because people are earning more money, we are becoming more prosperous, we are also becoming unhealthy in a way that our eating habits are changing. We are all highly now dependent on the quick commerce situations. Large amount of the population is ordering in or eating out. A bigger problem is that once you have type 2 diabetes, you are literally opening doors to a whole host of other very serious lifestyle disorders. Women who have PCOS, they will also have insulin resistance alongside.
So, what are some common signs and symptoms that people with diabetes might have?
When we say that a person has diabetes, it is literally that your blood is sweeter and hence thicker.
Rice is a big no.
The truth is that people who tell you to stop rice don't really understand nutrition.
Karela juice helps to reduce your blood sugar levels.
Oh my god, the number of times I have made content about this.
India is called diabetes capital of the world. Current research shows more than 100 million people are diabetic.
Wow.
And 130 million people are pre-diabetic.
Ooh.
The rate has suddenly increased, and I'm curious to know why this rate has suddenly increased, and I have some more questions about diabetes.
Okay, then this rate has increased because firstly we are a population which genetically has more body fat. Okay, so we know that adiposity, which is the percentage of body fat that you have, is directly correlated with your risk of diabetes mellitus or cardiovascular incidents or even hypertension and so forth. All right, so that is the number one causality. Second, as we are becoming, say, the fourth largest GDP nation in the world and people are earning more money, we are becoming more prosperous, we are also becoming unhealthy in a way that our eating habits are changing. We are all highly now dependent on the quick commerce situations, like even for the smallest thing we now order from our phones. And the other day, in fact, I was speaking to on another podcast with people from Turkey, and they were very, very amazed to know that we order, or if I was to order, say, a packet of milk from one of the apps that we use, it's going to reach me in less time than had I walked, gone downstairs, left my apartment and walked to the nearest store. They were mind blown with that, and they were like, okay, so essentially as a nation we have lost incentive to move.
Correct.
Okay, what that translates to is an increasing level of obesity. Most people are not fit. Most people today in our country, they are struggling to lose weight. Most people do not exercise, because that's also another thing, that culturally we are not, unfortunately, people who exercise. We are more likely to take a nap in the afternoon than wake up earlier in the morning and work out.
The diet is haywire.
The diet is all over the place. Our exposure to ultra processed foods, our exposure to even, say, things which are very high in fat is very high, and invariably now, increasingly, we are seeing that people have stopped cooking at home. So there was recently a study conducted where they found that in urban areas now in our country, large amount of the population is ordering in or eating out at least 3 times in a week.
Oh, that's a huge number.
Yeah, that's a very huge number. Okay, so out of the 7 days in a week, if you are eating out or ordering in 3 times, that means that almost 50% of your at least dinners or one of the meals is going to be high in fat, is going to be high in salt, is going to be high in calories. Essentially, you are eating unhealthily that many number of times. And of course, that does not mean, or that is not factoring in a situation where people are already eating the namkeens and the bhujiyas and the cookies and biscuits and chocolates and ice creams and so on and so forth, right? And we have so much variety in that, and increasingly we are also becoming more and more sedentary. It might feel that I'm talking about people having more weight, or it might feel that I'm speaking about obesity, or I'm speaking about increasing weights, but we know for a fact that it is directly correlated with the increasing numbers in diabetes, or the higher level numbers of pre-diabetes in our country. So that's the situation.
Okay, but what is this diabetes? And apart from obese people getting diabetes, what are other factors that can lead to diabetes?
What is diabetes? Diabetes is where your body is not able to metabolize the sugar. So your sugar levels, blood glucose levels are going to increase. When I say sugar levels, I mean blood glucose levels. Okay. So they are not going to be within the normal range. And suddenly my fasting blood glucose levels are going to be above 120, and my say sugar levels after a meal are going to be above 140. Now if this keeps on happening every day, and if the level of how high it is, how beyond the normal level it is, keeps on going up and up, is when you are going to be initially pre-diabetic, which can very quickly become diabetic in the current situation. And so that is when you start seeing that you have diabetes. Essentially you are diagnosed with that. Why does this happen? It happens either because of insulin insufficiency, which is where your pancreas are simply not able to secrete enough insulin, which is the type 1 kind of diabetes that we have. And the other most common type is that of type 2 diabetes, or what used to be called as adult onset diabetes, which normally when they first discovered type 2 diabetes, it was found only in adults. But now we are seeing that happening even in young kids and adolescents, around 12 and 13 years of age, are also now being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes mellitus. So what happens in type 2 diabetes is that you have enough insulin being secreted in your body, but your body, or the receptors for insulin, are covered with fat. Okay, or it's just your insulin is not able to work effectively. It's not that there's a problem of insufficiency, there's a problem of sensitivity, wherein your insulin is not able to work the way it should. Okay, and that happens because of a lot of noise within the ecosystem of insulin. It could be noise coming from your diet, it could be noise coming from the excessive fat that you have, it could be noise coming from there not simply not being enough movement or exercise, it could be because of poor sleep and extreme stress and so on and so forth. Okay, so these different factors lead you to pre-diabetes, and which then, if not say taken care of, if you don't change your lifestyle, then it's going to then translate to type 2 diabetes. And that's what it is. And the bigger problem is not that, oh my god, now I got diabetes. It's not game over there. Okay, the bigger problem is that once you have type 2 diabetes, you are literally opening doors to a whole host of other very serious lifestyle disorders. Okay, and this like hypertension, like obviously obesity is the first thing which is opening door to your diabetes, but there are people who are lean, who are not obese, and still they have type 2 diabetes as well, and they are then at a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, they can have hypertension, they could have even other severe forms of disorders.
I also have heard about PCOS.
PCOS usually is associated with insulin resistance. So what we find is that women who have PCOS, they will also have insulin resistance alongside. They may or may not have, because PCOS by itself is diagnosed by multiple different criteria. But yes, insulin resistance does happen in that as well, and which then can again lead to diabetes if you are not keeping things in check.
Okay.
So the bottom line is that if you have been diagnosed with a higher HbA1c level, or if you find that your fasting insulin levels are abnormal, then you should not be sitting on it. You need to be moving and walking and exercising and working on your diet with it, okay, because it can very, very quickly escalate into type 2 diabetes.
So, what are some common signs and symptoms that people with diabetes might have?
Common signs and symptoms would be, this is I'm telling you about if you've not been doing your annual checkups at all and suddenly you find that, oh my god, now I'm diabetic. So what you could find is that you start losing weight or you start gaining weight. Either way is possible, okay, that you've gained a whole lot of weight and hence you have diabetes, or you have such high levels of diabetes that you start seeing muscle wasting in your...
That's new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a lot of people actually don't know about this, that diabetes is going to lead to muscle wasting. So you will find that you're losing weight, or you will also find that your energy levels are reducing, or that there could be some smaller things like gout, recurrence of gout can also happen. Most of the diabetes is diagnosed after doing a blood as well as a urine test. In the older ages, how they would know that someone has madhumaya or diabetes is when they would go to the washroom, and after that particular person has come out, a while after that you would find a lot of ants in the washroom because of the sugar in the urine. Okay, so when we say that a person has diabetes, it is literally that your sugar is sweeter. When we say that a person has diabetes, it is literally that your blood is sweeter and hence thicker than that of someone who has normal blood glucose levels. So that's how it goes. Another very important symptom or sign that could tell you that maybe you have insulin resistance, or you might even have something higher, which is like a diabetes, is if you have a dark patch, like, a leathery patch around your neck, okay, which is called acanthosis nigricans. This is often also seen in women who have PCOS because of the insulin resistance associated with it. So that is again a very important symptom or a marker, that if you do have a black leathery patch on the back of your neck, sometimes it can even be on your armpits, you can see a leathery, soft leathery dark patch, then it's a indicator that your blood sugar levels are not okay.
Okay. Then how to check that you have diabetes or you are pre-diabetic? What are the some common tests to know this? And also I want to know about the insulin resistance test.
Okay, great question. So we will start with insulin resistance, okay? So if you want to know whether you have insulin resistance or not, you should be checking your HbA1c levels as well as your HOMA-IR. That is the test that we recommend. Now, what these tests are, we have made a very detailed video of that. We will share the link of that same video out here. So please watch that as well. But coming back to the tests, you have HOMA-IR and your HbA1c levels. You should also be checking your fasting insulin to know whether everything is okay or not. Any abnormalities in that could indicate insulin resistance. If you already know that you have diabetes, you've been diagnosed with it, and you want to manage that, then what you need to be looking at is your fasting insulin levels as well as your glycated hemoglobin. You also would be checking your fasting blood glucose levels and postprandial, which is after a meal, blood sugars, but the HbA1c and the fasting insulin are better indicators of what is going on in your body, simply because your fasting blood glucose as well as your postprandial blood glucose is going to tell you the story of only one day. Okay, and people who have had diabetes since a really long time, they know how to hack it. Okay, so I'll give you a very quick example. My uncle, okay, he had diabetes since a really long time, and he had figured out that if day after I have to visit the doctor, he's going to ask me for my latest fasting blood glucose and postprandial blood glucose report, right?
Yes.
So what he used to do is that a day before going for the testing, that day he would eat very healthily. Okay, he would eat like minimal carbs, he would not indulge in any chocolate or any mithai or anything, and make sure that, the next day when they check his blood, he would find that things were okay or they were in control. obviously because he had diabetes and a really chronic one at that, even all of that say tweaking or hacking was not going to bring his levels, wouldn't bring his levels back to completely normal, but at least that way he was ensuring that his doctor was not, you know, losing his mind or really giving it to him when he would see his report. Unfortunately for my uncle, diagnostics progressed and they found a test called glycated hemoglobin, that is HbA1c, and that is going to tell you an average of your blood glucose levels over the past 3 months, and that then becomes a better indicator,
Yeah.
and that way you can't hack it and try to fool your doctor or anyone for that matter, because they will know what you've done in all of the past 3 months.
That's smart.
Yeah, thank goodness for that.
I have also seen many people wearing a patch here or a machine.
Yeah.
What is that?
That is a continuous glucose monitor. You will find people wearing it on their arm, and what it checks is how your blood glucose levels are fluctuating through the day. Okay. Now there is a little bit of a catch in that, but okay. So the CGM device is going to tell you or is going to raise an alarm over say any carbs that you're eating, because your blood glucose levels are going to increase, right? So to my mind, or to my in my professional opinion, that is not a very good way of going about managing your diabetes.
Why?
Okay, simply because you can bring your HbA1c levels down even when you are eating some whole carbs, provided you are combining it with some good protein and some healthy fats and fiber, like which is in the form of fruits and vegetables, and you don't need to obsess over the fact that your blood glucose levels increased a little above the threshold. What is more important to see is whether those levels are coming back to normal within the span of 2 hours or not. That is super important. So the CGM device actually is not my favorite way of managing or going about checking your blood glucose levels, because it creates an unnecessary anxiety and paranoia about eating anything. And if there is one thing that is important for managing diabetes, it is eating properly. So if you're now going to be scared of eating that and to trying to ensure that the device is not screaming at you, then that's truly not going to help you to manage your blood glucose levels. In fact, it will put you at a risk of hypoglycemia. So ensuring that the glycemic load and the glycemic index of the meals are good is the better way of going about it.
What's that? What's glycemic load? What's glycemic index?
We have made a detailed video for that as well. Let's link that out here.
Sure.
And watch that so that you will know what glycemic load and glycemic index is.
People with diabetes should stop rice. Rice is a big no. What is the truth behind it?
The truth is that people who tell you to stop rice don't really understand nutrition or diabetes. I'll tell you why, okay? The moment someone tells you to stop rice, then you're going to ask them that, okay, so if I have to never eat rice, then what do I eat, right?
Yes.
And the option that they'll give you is a millet roti,
Yeah,
invariably.
definitely.
Now, these guys, they don't know that the millet roti is also a carb, just like rice, okay? So, essentially, you are replacing a carb with carb.
Yes.
What is more important is not whether you are eating a millet or a wheat roti or a rice or a bread, but how much of it you are eating.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because that is going to be a determinant of the glycemic load.
Okay.
All right. So if you have diabetes, let me tell you, you can manage your blood glucose levels even by eating rice every single day. Make sure that you are eating adequate amount of protein with it, at least 20 grams of protein with your rice meal. Make sure that the quantum of the rice is not like, you know, a heaped plate full of rice, but limited to around half cup to 1 cup, depending on what your weight and where your blood glucose levels are. And of course, also pair that with a whole lot of vegetables and see what difference it makes. You will find that it's not going to increase your blood glucose levels like that, okay? But you will, funnily enough, all the people who tell people to stop rice, and then folks switch to millet roti, and then they find that a month down the line their HbA1c levels are still the same, because no one is explaining to their patients that changing just simply from rice to millet is not the key, because if I just say that stop rice and eat millets, then anyone is going to be like, okay, so then which means that I can eat as much millet roti as I want. But it is, the diabetes management is a game of glycemic load. So you need to be ensuring that you are eating even that millet roti within a certain proportion only. And that's the only reason, like, only way that you can manage diabetes.
There is another myth around fruits, especially mango, that people with diabetes cannot eat mango. Is that true?
So people with diabetes can eat mango, but it needs to be paired with a meal or with, say, some other snack like some nuts or something. And of course, if I say that you can eat mango, then a lot of times people think that it also means that you can eat amaras and you can eat mango milkshakes and everything.
Yeah.
Then that is a big no. You should not be eating that. And when you're eating mango, again, you need to ensure that you are picking the smallest of the lot. Or if your blood glucose levels are very high, then I would say limit it to only 2 small pieces and not the whole mango.
But can they eat it every day?
Yes, they can, but it again depends on how much and say where their blood glucose levels are. All right, and it needs to be paired with something.
And what about tea, coffee, and sugar in it? Can they have it, or is there any alternative for it?
It's best if you avoid tea or sugar in your tea or coffee if you have diabetes. You have a lot of sweeteners available. We have an episode on that as well. It's clearly telling me that we have made a lot of content and loads of videos here which you guys have still not watched. Let me plug in like one bit here and ask you to subscribe and go watch all of the videos in case you don't know about it, and share it with everyone as well. Okay, but coming back to the tea and coffee thing, okay, if you have diabetes, it's best to avoid any added sugar as much as possible. Okay, and that also means that for your tea, coffee, you could be using alternatives, alternative sweeteners. That is what I would recommend.
So now let's come to diet, exercise. So what dietary and lifestyle changes makes a big difference in managing diabetes?
Okay, the key word to remember when managing diabetes is balance. All right, diabetes management is all about balance. There is one illness which hates extremes, is diabetes.
Oh.
Yeah, so when I'm saying that, I mean that there are a lot of people who will go to the camps, they'll go and enroll themselves in some retreat or something where their lifestyle normally was something which was loaded with a lot of ultra processed stuff, or not very healthy eating, no exercise, and then for 15 days they go someplace and here they are suddenly eating a very, very low calorie diet. None of the other, say, ultra processed distractions are there, and they are walking every day, okay, for 15 days. They will find that their blood sugar levels drop. Okay, they will also find along with that that their body weight is going to drop. But the moment they come back to their environment, because that then becomes like an extreme behavior for them, the moment they come back to their environment, they find that not just their body weight increases, the blood sugar levels also shoot up significantly more than earlier, than when before they went to that camp. Why does that happen? Is because if you are going to do something like just completely stopping all carbs from your meals to manage your sugars, then yes, your body will drop your blood glucose levels, but you still have excess insulin which is not being used up. So you're in that scenario, you're doing two things. You are risking hypoglycemia, and you're also risking the fact that when you do start eating the carbs, your sugars are going to rise significantly high.
Yes,
all right,
definitely.
and a lot of times people forget that diabetes management is not just management of carbs, it's management of the balance. Okay, so it's not just about whether how much rice am I eating, or whether I'm adding sugar to my tea or coffee or not, but it's also about ensuring that I have adequate protein, adequate healthy fat, and a very good amount of fiber in my diet. Okay, and that is super crucial, because not eating is not the solution. Okay, it's actually going to make you weaker. And like I already explained, that in diabetes, muscle wasting is a big risk, so you don't want to become weaker. Diabetes is already doing that for you. Okay, so what you do need to ensure is that you're eating enough protein, fiber, fat, and all of these factors are also going to, all the macronutrients, they are also going to do the work which you want your insulin or your medications to do. So they are going to hold on to the dietary glucose and not let it increase your blood glucose levels quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so what the fiber and the fat and the protein in your diet does is it holds on to it and says, you know, what's the rush? Why do you want to go and increase Amita's blood glucose so quickly? Let's go slowly. And that is what we need in diabetes management. It's all about ensuring that your blood glucose levels remain steady. You don't want like big rises, you don't even want big drops in your blood glucose levels.
And what about exercise? What should be the moderate amount of exercise, and which type of exercise is best for people with diabetes?
The number one exercise for people with diabetes is walking.
Okay.
You must be walking for at least 15 minutes after every meal. Okay. In fact, even if you are someone who wears a continuous glucose monitor, that's a CGM patch, you will find that that device is going to push you or is going to alert you that, oh, your blood glucose levels have increased, please go for a walk. Okay. And when you walk, you will find that your blood glucose levels come down. So walking is number one. The second is strength training, because you need to be strength training, you need to be lifting weights and ensuring that you don't lose muscle mass, because like I said, diabetes is already doing that for you. You want to counter that. You don't want to give in. You want to hold on to as much muscle as you can, and for that you need more muscle mass. The other beauty of having or working on increasing muscle mass is that in terms of diabetes management, when we say that you want to manage the blood glucose levels, what do you want to do? You want to ensure that the circulating blood glucose does not increase beyond a certain level, which means that you want it to be removed from the blood, right?
Yes.
So there's one place where it gets removed is where it goes to the liver, but liver can only take as much. Okay, liver has a very strict, I will not take beyond this capacity kind of a policy. So which means then that sugar has to go someplace else.
Yes.
Where can it go? It goes to your muscle glycogen. Okay. Now imagine this, that I need to be putting the blood glucose into the muscle glycogen. But if I don't have enough muscle, what's going to happen? That sugar will not have any place to go.
Correct.
Which is also why you need to be working on increasing your muscle mass if you have diabetes, if simply because you want more of muscle to hold on to all of the blood glucose.
Okay. I have also heard many people saying Karela juice helps to reduce your blood sugar levels.
Oh my God, the number of times I have made content about this and it just doesn't stop. Okay. Here's the thing. If you are diabetic, you are at a very high risk of getting kidney disorders. One of the kidney disorders is kidney stones. If you are taking vegetable juices, be it Karela, be it Rajgod, be it Lauki ka juice, be it beetroot juice, any vegetable juice, okay, if you are taking that, it comes with a very high oxalate load, which is going to immediately tell your kidneys, make some kidney stones.
Oh.
So, yes. So, if you have diabetes, remember you are at a higher risk of kidney stones. If you don't want the free gift of kidney stones along with your existing high blood glucose levels and diabetes, stop taking vegetable juices.
As you mentioned, one of the consequence of people with diabetes is getting kidney stones. Apart from that, are there any major consequences that people with diabetes can get?
Oh, loads. First of all, you can get heart disease. Okay. And I don't know about you, I want to be very careful that my heart is super healthy. You should be doing that too, okay? Second is, it can lead you to kidney disease, which is nephropathy that happens. Third is neuropathy. So, understand this, that the blood glucose is circulating in your blood and your blood is everywhere in your body, right? Now, if it is like sweet blood, which is very sweet blood, which is circulating, it's going to go and leave those glucose deposits all over your body.
Yes.
Okay, and that is why once you have diabetes and if it is not managed well, if it is not controlled well, then you will find it impacting all of your organs. So you will also find that your risk of retinopathy increases, wherein you are now going to not have great vision. You will find that you start getting more gangrenes, your wounds are not going to heal, and so on and so forth. So uncontrolled diabetes has impact on every organ system in your body.
That's danger.
Very, very dangerous and very, very alarming.
Okay. And finally, can diabetes be reversed?
Okay, so diabetes can be reversed in a way that you can make sure that your blood glucose levels go back to normal, that you become medication free. Even if you are on insulin, you can ensure that you are following a certain way of life and way of eating, which you can become free of insulin as well. But it's like once you have, say, bumped your toe in one place, you are more likely to just bump into that same spot again. Similarly, once you got diabetes, even if you have managed all of the symptoms and now you are medication free, or now your blood sugars are completely normal, you need to be following that way of life forever. Otherwise, if you suddenly become an unhealthy eater or start binging on all the ultra processed foods or start doing everything that you are not supposed to do, it will come back. So diabetes can be put into remission.
Okay.
That's a better term
Okay.
than saying that it can be reversed completely.
Okay.
Okay, I have put in a lot of energy in making you understand diabetes. I hope you all watch this. Please share it with your parents as well. This is best forward on WhatsApp. We have the link here. Hit that share button. And if you're not still subscribed us, why? Why not? Please hit that subscribe button so that we become more encouraged and motivated to bring such content for you. See you guys.